All right, guys, welcome. Hello. We are back doing our live interviews. Well, not this. This was not live, but video interviews. And we are actually back with Sleep Cycles. I think it was last year or 2 years ago that I actually interviewed Chris. But now more tours and more songs have happened. Excited to have you back, and also dance with me. I think you weren't in the other one.
I don't think I was in the last one.
Correct. Yeah. Welcome back. If you guys need a refresher, it's been a couple of years. Sleep Cycles is an alternative punk rock band from Philadelphia, PA. So, again, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so pumped.
Yeah. So, give us a little refresher. Who are you in the band and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I'm Chris. I sing and play rhythm guitar in the band. We're a four-piece from, I wouldn't say from technically Philadelphia, but the Philadelphia region. We're all from the burbs. And unfortunately, there's just so many suburbs in Pennsylvania that like no one's ever heard of. So it's a lot easier to say.
Yeah.
Philly. We're all a half hour from the city. So.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
So we're actually here doing this interview because we heard that you have a single coming out. At the time of recording, it'll be next week, but when this comes out, it'll be within a couple days or even like today. You want to talk a little bit about Particles and like how that kind of came about?
Absolutely. So yeah, I think it's March 3rd is our first release since October 2021. And since our last EP, so we're really excited, and we've been cooking up some songs in our camp to evolve basically the story of who we are as a band and what we want to say and the mark we're making, and Particles is like a pretty wild song. I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely like the heavier, whatever you want to say, of the songs we've done so far. Once we put out the last record, we were just sort of working on some new styles and trying to figure out new tones and gear and things. And our guitar player, Steven, who's lead guitar, he is just like such an amazing shredder and awesome like songwriter in general. But he comes from like sort of like more metal side.
Right.
But he's an amazing writer for our style as well. But he brought to the table this demo of this sort of like darker, heavier drop, C# song, and it was so fun to like lean into that. I felt like like the early days of like The Used or something. I was like, okay, this is cool. And I started working on the lyrics, and the song's called Particles, and it's really just about almost lying to yourself and sort of calling out bullshit thoughts that you could have, and really taking like responsibility for your own thoughts. It's like, especially in the last like 2-3 years, there's so much stuff has been going on and in everyone's lives and like in my life, and it's really easy to like bog yourself down, and there may not even be external forces that like are influencing your emotions, but sometimes like we just do it to ourselves. And so that's just sort of like what the whole song is about. It's just sort of like calling that out, taking responsibility for it, and abolishing that kind of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the music, do you solely write the vocals, or is it more of a collaborative effort?
Oh, I do all the vocals for everything. Yeah. And Steve and I split most of the songwriting. And then every now and then, Chris, our bassist, will come up with a song riff too. But since Steve and I both sort of have like mini recording studios in our house, it's really easy for us to like, if we just have, a couple of together, we'll just knock out like a full tune, just recording it ourselves and try to get a sense of the song. So every now and then someone's got a vocal idea, but I would say 99% of the time it's kind of just me left to my own devices. And half the time that stuff comes out like in the studio when I'm working on it. I have a whole idea, and then you record it and you're like, yeah, I don't really think this is as good as I thought it's going to be.
Right.
So did that happen when writing Particles?
Yeah. So I come from like, sort of like a folk alternative rock background. So my entire music career has been doing like, I would play guitar, but it was almost never was electric. I was an acoustic player, and I played in like acoustic bands, or I would be the gun for hire acoustic player and backup vocalist in other bands that would just want that. And so to me, like, it's most natural to write with the acoustic. So anything that we write and play, I'm never working. Like, I've seen people at like band practice like sitting with notebooks and writing while the band's jamming. And like, that's just ain't me. It's never been my thing. I like to sit down, light some candles at like 11 o'clock and just like play through softly on this and see just kind of what comes out. And that's what happened with Particles for sure. And then also I recently bought like a keyboard.
Ooh.
And I can't play piano at all, just that. But I recently got one and I was just messing around with it. And I had a little bit of like a jingle come out of that I used for the whole bridge of Particles kind of came from just writing on the keyboard, just messing around, trying to teach myself how to play. I'm not very good.
So, you were able to like kind of create something new with like a new experience, like instrument. So
like you forget that like there are a whole plethora of things that can make sound and melodies. And sometimes you have to remember that like you can be creative in other ways. And if you're not hearing something with the electric, go to the acoustic. If you're not hearing something with the acoustic, go to the piano, or try just writing on the bass or what, like the other day I was trying to buy a mandolin so that I don't know how to play the mandolin, but it's fun to write on because it has a different sound, which inspires emotions, which might thing that would not have come naturally. Cool.
It's interesting.
I'm always so impressed by that. Like it's wild that you could just pick up an instrument that you're not familiar with and get yourself familiar with it enough that you can write music with it. That's
it's
really impressive.
I would never show anybody my skills on it because it's bad.
Sure.
But it is nice because I don't know. I can play most instruments just enough to write music. I could never in my life play a song on most other instruments, though. Like if you were like, "Can you play Jingle Bells on the piano?" I'd be like, "Absolutely not." But
so it's all good.
Cool melodies or just even chord structures, bringing out emotion. Because like sound is so emotional, right? And like even sometimes when you hear like songs and there's like atmosphere in the beginning of the song before there even any instruments play, and you're just like in a headspace when you hear that. And so cool with like a keyboard, even though we don't use keyboards, like we specifically don't have any keyboards or piano stuff in any Sleep Cycles music. But if you can map out different sounds to the keyboard, the moment you play in something, you can suddenly, it can sound like a foghorn really far away. Well, and that makes me think of like a foggy, rainy day and like walking through that emotion in that location. What was going on and what does that inspire emotionally and like what is the journey that someone listens to the song? Like where are they going with it? And that can inspire an entire song just by making just like a sound with like a keyboard. Even though that will never end up in the song, which is interesting.
Yeah. Going back to Particles, you were mentioning how like yours and the band's lives has changed when you were making the song. Did like, I don't want to bring up like COVID again, but like, because the process was probably coming around like when we were like going through like the pandemic and a lot of like isolation and everything. Did that inspire any of the creative process at all, or was just
a little bit? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've had an insane last like 3 years, but like even in the pandemic, like I did pretty good in the pandemic. Like I run my own business, so we just kind of kept working and did okay. Like the first week of the pandemic, my best friend killed himself, and then a year later, I got engaged, and then the week of the engagement party, one of my groomsmen died, and then like all this other crazy shit. My mother-in-law started getting really sick, and then I was getting married, and then one of my pets died, and it was just like mayhem, like just crazy, like of just like really high highs and really low lows of just and then you're sort of like you almost find yourself having a hard time when there's a lot of trauma in like a short time period. You almost find yourself like unable to have regular conversations with people. You're just, they're like, "Oh, I'll tell you what's difficult. Going to work and doing my job." And you're like, things are worse for other people, it can get worse. But that's not like a good thinking. That's not a good way of like living. Is like just like being like competitive trauma.
Yeah.
Like, end up like sitting, and I like play a lot of video games, and I'll like sit and just like brood and like play games, and just that's kind of where the particles came from, because it's like, dude, go for a walk, call people, be thankful you're still alive, like instead of being angry at the world, you know. I think Particles was kind of my first like angry song that we've done.
Yeah, it's very like we got a little sneak peek from it. So, and it's a very like I can tell that there was like a lot of emotional release that came out of like writing it and also producing it. Like, so
Yeah,
that's cool that the like not only you but also the band was able to create something out of whatever emotions you were feeling like the past couple of years and just put it into song form.
yeah. I mean, it's a blessing. I would not be alive if I couldn't create something. My entire life is just built around creating things.
Absolutely.
So you said earlier that Particles is your heaviest song to date.
I would say so. It's pretty dark. Maybe not heaviest, but the darkest for sure.
Like content wise, it's pretty heavy.
Would you say that any new music going forward from this, could we expect a little bit more of a heavier, darker vibe, or is this kind of more of a one-off track?
I would say that you could definitely expect darker music. I don't know how heavy we want to get, but because if you have like 3 or 4 of them that are heavy, that makes the lighter ones really stand out in a cool way.
Sure.
But then the heavy ones don't stand out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you got to ride that line, because everybody in the band has such different influences, and we're trying to bring a sound to the table and trying to figure out what we as a band sound like. I mean, shit, dude, like we are like young. Like this is like 3 years as a band. We have 1 EP out. It's like we don't even know what we sound like or what we could write. So in 2, 3, 4 releases from now, we could be completely different. And so to me, it's like, well, I don't know. I am not trying to like we're not trying to get like signed and go on 90-day tours and any of that stuff. So I could really care less what people think of our sound. To me, it's like, if you're going to listen to, you know, an EP or full length or whatever, like it just should feel like they're trying to say something, and tonally that it's a bit connected. So like, to me, like we have two other songs, you know, on deck that are going to be coming out in the next couple months, and like all 3 of these songs are just so different in such a fun way. You know, we really lean into like a bit of our punk pop feel on one of them, and then we really go like alternative on another one that feels very like, you know, almost like the Dangerous Summer, and then we kind of really lean into like a heavier one. Like I said, on Particles, it kind of feels like an old like used song or something. And so it's just fun to kind of explore different influences and sounds. But my goal is that like we can create a sort of trajectory of these songs that come out, that the darker one leads you towards the lighter one, which then leads you back to the darker one. So it's not just like abrasively different, you know?
I was even going to mention, like, even the cover art for Particles seems so much more different compared to your other releases. Like,
Yeah.
I love that cover art so much. I'm like a visual person. I don't know if we're gonna like pop it up on the screen. That'll be in post. But basically, it's just like it's a bunch of like stacked books. I don't know if they're used or old. Like, and there's like a window that's like shining over it, and like some TVs. It's like very warehousey, very like abandoned, but like not really. I just love the dark tone of it.
Yeah, it's sort of you know, this like attic that is like kind of a symbol of like your mind, and just everything you think that's important that's collecting dust up there, and just unnecessary crap, you know. So that's sort of where that comes from.
What was the did you guys shoot that, or was it like digitally enhanced, or
like just done in like Photoshops and like use
it's amazing,
help it and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Love it. It's so
also,
great.
yeah. The problem with artwork for like releases is that the moment you finish it, you think of a better idea.
I don't know. I kind of like it, because like once I saw like the name Particles, it's like, and then once you mentioned the attic, I'm like, okay, this like it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So What would you do instead? I'm curious.
Well, I don't know. I mean, even with that one, it was like there was like 5 others before that.
Oh, okay.
You're like, all right, ready? And then it was like, nah, give me a couple more days. I'm going to change it completely. And then you're like, nah, give me a couple more days. I'm going to change it completely. And
Fair enough.
it kind of drifts around in different directions.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
Well, I would say you guys landed on the correct one because this one's pretty cool.
Yeah, we might be
We're
biased,
fans.
but we like it.
Sweet. Yeah. And then I came up with another one after this, which I'm not going to talk about because you'll see it later. But I think we're going to use it as like artwork for like the EP. But I'm really pumped about it because it kind of personifies like exactly what I'm trying to say. So we'll have this conversation when like a bigger release comes out.
We will see you in a couple months. Talk about it.
And
You heard it first, folks. Apart from the release and everything, do you guys have any kind of shows or tours planned to kind of like promote the release? Will you be coming back to Long Island, hopefully? Or by any chance?
We always go to Long Island. We love it there. Yeah, we have so let's see. The day our day Particles comes out, we're playing in Philly with I Call Fives. And then the following week we're playing in Reading, Pennsylvania, and that's I forgot the name of the venue, but that is with Every Avenue.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
great.
We got 2 shows Friday after Friday, which is pretty cool. We usually don't play Fridays, so it's nice to get a good crowd. They're always like, hey, you want to come play a show? It's on like a Wednesday, 2 hours away. You're like, oh God.
Yeah, I do photography on the side. And I have bands that are like, oh yeah, like you want to take photos for the show? It's on a Wednesday at 9 p.m. I'm like, that's my bedtime. What are you talking about? Like, so it's silly, but no, it's okay. But Fridays are good.
People go out on Fridays and Saturdays,
Exactly. It's cool. I don't know. But actually on that, I might have asked you this before. Maybe it's changed since then. Do you have any like fond memories of any shows in any particular venue or like state or anything? Or
it's interesting. Yeah, I mean I'm absolutely obsessed with Butch Walker, and I think he's like the great American rock and roller that's still living. And he puts on by far the best live show I've ever seen in my life. And I saw him in New York, I forget where, maybe Webster or something, and Irving Plaza, I think it was. And he had Greg Holden open up for him. And I didn't know who Greg Holden was. And even though I knew his music, and then as he was playing, he was like this, playing acoustic, and it was just so like amazing to see. The show itself was so good. And then, I went home and I listened to Greg Holden every day for like 3 years straight. And it's funny how like, one show can just make you be like, oh, this is my new favorite person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes. I'm trying to remember if I had a band like that I went to a show and was like, yep, this is my band now. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that was my favorite for a long time, but then I recently saw Butch Walker again, and he was even better. So that one time.
That's awesome. Do you have any bands that were kind of like that? I guess
not that I didn't already know, but I recently saw Knocked Loose, and I will never miss another Knocked Loose set again. Like that was my favorite show. That show was so much fun.
I'm trying to remember the band that I saw at Eat.
But I had been a fan of them for a while beforehand, so I don't know if that.
Yeah.
Once, but yeah, I had so much fun at that show.
Yeah. Mariachi El Bronx I saw in Buffalo. So the original band is the Bronx, but they have like they're like a pretty.
I used to love the Bronx.
They're good, yeah. So they're like a heavy band, but they have like a mariachi version, Mariachi El Bronx. It's the same band members, but like with the mariachi, it's so cool. And like I saw it in Buffalo, that was amazing. And now they're my favorite people. I want to meet them in person.
Yeah.
So, I love the Bronx. I haven't seen the Bronx since like 2007 Warped Tour.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, did Warped Tour trick you?
I just forgot that Warped Tour even existed.
Well, when we were young, Fest is like trying to be the new Warped Tour, I suppose.
I had a great time at that festival too.
Ooh,
so
okay.
I would do that every time.
That's true. Did you go to work when we were young Fest at all, or?
No, I haven't really done any festivals in a long time. I think I'm just getting like too old.
I was exhausted. I was exhausted after that.
Well, it was like 3 days, right?
No, it was 1 day and I was exhausted.
Yeah.
It felt like 3 days.
Now when I go to a show, it's like when we hit hour 3 of the show, I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Yep.
And so I just the idea of like from morning till night feels so over. I don't know. I'm sure they're great, man. I don't think I can do that anymore.
They're a lot of fun, but then there's like that like between 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. is when everyone is just like absolutely exhausted, either from like the heat or not drinking enough water or anything, and everyone's just kind of like.
Well, yeah. I mean, we this on a small scale. Last year, we did a couple summer tours, and we went up and we played Connecticut, I guess East Haven or West Haven or something like that, Connecticut in July at a beer festival. And it was like noon to like, midnight.
Jeez.
It played at like 2:30, which was great. But then by 6 o'clock, I was like sleeping in the van. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I can't stand in a room for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And the other place to go is to the bar. And so I was, you have like 7 beers and you're like, all right, I got to get out of here. Out in the venue.
Oh, no.
Like, I need to get steps in and like, like move around. And
like, I can't do this anymore.
See, that's the nice thing about a festival. They're always fucking huge. So you could just walk around all over. You can get plenty of your steps in there.
Yeah.
That is true. That is very, very true. Never thought of that. There you go. Segue back into Particles, because that's the real reason why we're here. In terms of, for those who have like new fans and old fans, what do you think will be the most surprising element of Particles release? If there is any surprise. I was very surprised, but I don't know if you...
That's a great question. Like, to me, it's really surprising the contrast of tones that were captured. This is a bit nerdy, but like it's to me like we really go through a full spectrum of sound on that song. Like, we work really hard on the sound, like the actual sound of it. Not just like how heavy are the guitars or anything, but like what do the drums sound like? What does the intro sound like? The bridge, there's like 20 layers of vocals in the bridge, and I really had fun. Like in the very end chorus, I kind of flex some singing a little bit, and that was really cool because I don't really do it too often, and that was fun just to sort of like put a minor flex on that. And also it's cool to I think the drums are like the best part of the song. The drums are just really, and so they sound so good. And I'm not a drummer or anything, and I don't know how to mix drums or anything of that kind. But Greg and Steven Angelo, who mixed it and also helped recording with Fred for the song, because Fred produced that again. I don't know, it was just awesome. It's just I really like the sounds on it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, we've already heard it, but I'm excited for other people to hear it. On that note, we're going to wrap this up, but thank you so much for hanging out with us on this Saturday afternoon. Really, I mean, we've already heard it, but I'm really excited to just have it on my phone and on Spotify, Particles. But for people who aren't already convinced to listen about listening or that, I'm like, can you do this? Sorry. I'm like, as soon as I started the sentence, I'm like, this train is just off the rails.
If people aren't convinced already from watching all this and hearing previous Sleep Cycle music, if you had like a little soapbox, a little 15-second speech to try to get someone to give Sleep Cycles a chance, what would you say?
I would say that if you're considering or debating whether or not you should listen to this song, just give it a chance and don't be an asshole,
There you go. I like that.
Give it a chance, don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Have you used Sleep Cycles merch?
Yeah.
That's on a shirt. Hell yeah.
No, it's I think you'll enjoy it. If anyone's a fan of like Alexis on Fire or like Thrice, it's very those kinds of bands. It's very heavy and fun, but also it moves and it's soaring vocals. And if you're going through some shit, it's a great song to listen to because it's just about calling out the crap that's seeping around, in your brain, your heart, and your veins.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Again, Chris, thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure. And yeah, I can't wait to see you back on Long Island or wherever else you may be.
Can't wait. Thank you guys so much. You rock. I love this.
Awesome.
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you.